Hello, everybody. Welcome on the Lights on Data show. And today we have Harpreet joining us, and we're going to find out more about the artist behind the artist of data science.
And I will introduce our amazing guest. He's a data scientist, a statistician, a podcaster, and as George said, a true artist of data science. What I find amazing about Harpreet is that he is the mentor of over 2,500 up and coming data scientists. That's amazing. So to go more into detail, he's a data scientist unicorn with strong business acumen, statistical background, modeling capabilities, data engineering, machine learning, engineering know-hows. He hosts the Artist of Data Science podcast, where he's putting the most interesting topic into focus and continuously gives back to the data community. Please welcome Harpreet, who is a thought leader in the data science space. Hello.
Hey, whoa, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate
That's
that.
all you.
Man, now I gotta live up to that unicorn title. I gotta live up to that.
Yeah. Harpreet, before we go into the deep data stuff, I wanted to ask a little bit more about you. Tell us a little bit about your family, pets, hobbies. We just talked about beer. Tell us a little bit about yourself, personal stuff.
Yeah, so family, I got, but just had a baby about a year ago. His name is Jagad. He's
Aw.
just over 13 months old. He kept me up all night last night. He woke up at 3 a.m. It was just wah, wah, wah all night. But yeah, he's super, super cute. And then, yeah, it's just me, him, and my wife, Romy. And yeah, based out of here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. But originally, I'm from California, Sacramento, California, born and raised. I stayed there until I think I left California. I was probably 27, 28. It's been that's been 10 years since I left California. Yeah. So it's been a long time. Yeah.
Wow.
And you like beer very much.
I do. I love beer. I love good craft beer. I just love the creativity and artistry that goes into beer.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Right. Like a standard, like making a good lager or a good pilsner, like it's just a standard beer, but getting it right, there's so much that goes into it. And I was actually part of a beer home brewing club here in Winnipeg called the Winnipeg Brew Bombers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't contribute much. I just show up to the meetings and like bring snacks and bottle beer and drink everybody else's beer and be like, oh yeah, I didn't make this beer, but I bought it. But it was fun. It was just a chance to just see how these guys put in so much science into brewing beer.
Yeah.
It's really, really an art form, and I mean science as well for sure. Yeah.
Well, they are started to offer in university beer making courses and wine making courses, and I thought, okay, well, I graduated way too early.
Yeah.
That would have been an elective for me.
And can you share again the quote about beer?
Yeah, I forgot who it was. It might have been Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, one of those old guys. And he said, "Beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy." But I mean, this is coffee this morning. You can verify that. This is actually
just wonderful.
And here I've actually switched to matcha,
which tastes like fish, in my opinion.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Interesting.
Anyways, maybe it's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
Well, so we do want to find out a little bit more about you. We'd like to find out more about your journey into data science and where you are right now. So can you start from the present? What do you do right now? And then we'll see what's the path that you took?
Yeah, so right now I'm lead data scientist at Price Industries. So I was the first data scientist that they hired and still like the only data scientist in the company.
Wow.
And I've been at Price for about 2 years. And I started off working on, they had me work on one specific project and I was able to deliver some good value for that project. And now they're like, oh, well, let's have you do other things. But as it turns out, in order for me to do other things, we need good data in full effect. So now they've got me in charge of doing like data management, data governance and stuff like that. So I've been really leaning on George for some good insight and information for that.
I promise I'll have a new course coming out that I think will really help you out. It's on really practical data governance implementation. So walks you through all the steps and has templates and everything. So I'll
and our house is a recording studio.
Yeah, Tina isn't very happy.
No, I am very happy and proud. It's just that There's one room in the house that I can't use, and
Yeah.
that's the living room. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's the main room. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, sign me up for that course because that's super important. I think that's something like most data scientists don't get really exposed to, especially early on in their career. We'll go into maybe a boot camp or even just a university program, and all we're taught are just the technical aspects of how to tune an algorithm, how to fit an algorithm, how to do various statistical techniques. But very, I mean, I don't know if it dawns on us that actually we're just end consumers of data at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an entire life cycle, entire process of data that happens before it gets to you. And I'm starting to realize that as I'm working through this process at work, that there's so much I don't know about like the data ecosystem, and it's been a tremendous learning experience. And people like you, Scott Taylor, have been very helpful and instrumental in my understanding of data management, data governance, because these were foreign terms to me before. Man, I didn't understand what any of this stuff was or the importance of it, or what have you, until I had to like start doing it myself.
Well, you know what? And it goes the other way around as well. People in data management, data governance don't always know all the uses of data and all the different hats that people wear, like within data science, and how they need to make best use of it, just so then they would know how to manage it better. Through that ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it
However,
definitely goes
you should
both
be
ways.
happy that this is exactly the gap that you two are filling, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
apparently there is a high demand for it because you guys have following and people need this type of content.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have that high level perspective as well as that low down kind of perspective, right? And what I mean by that is, as a data scientist, of course, understand the technicalities of the various machine learning algorithms and how to code and do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, just kind of have like that bird's eye view of the entire data generating process, right? There's the real world, there's your model, in between is the data. But then how does that data from the real world get captured, right? How do we make sure that it's consistent, it's well governed, that it's of good quality, and things like that? Yeah, there's so much to learn and know about data. There's a place for everyone, I think, in the field, no matter what your interests are.
Yeah, I feel in a way you're lucky, though. At times you might be feeling frustrated in your job because you have to do all these different things. But again, the pros and the cons, you get to do all these different things. You get to wear all these different hats, and which can be frustrating, especially if you get to do some of the things that you don't like doing.
Yeah.
But you're learning quite a bit as well. And I think
Yeah.
you will definitely have a new perspective that a bunch of us don't because of that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a tremendous learning experience, and the frustrating part is, because I have to learn so much, I feel dumb. I feel stupid. I feel like, oh man, I should know how to do this. I should have some answers, but I don't. I don't know what to do next. Like, I have to take it one step at a time, and I think that's the frustrating part. You just have to overcome that and start doing stuff.
That feeling, I think it's something that a bunch of us are battling with at times whenever we don't know something, and we don't feel adequate for the role because of that. But maybe we need to flip that around, and we need to flip that mentality and just feel, happy that we get the opportunity to get paid to learn, basically.
Yep.
And it's not a bad situation to be in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Agree.
So Harpreet, as the lead data scientist, sorry, how did you get into this role? Was it right after graduation that you just jumped into data science, or was it a different, track that you had to take?
Yeah, so I started grad school in, I think it was 2010, 2011, something like that. And at that time, like the sexiest job or the hottest job was being actuary, right? So I went to grad school and I was like, I'm going to be an actuary. That's what I'm going to do. So I went to grad school, studied math and statistics, took a bunch of actuarial exams. And then right after grad school, like it was tough in grad school. Like I was one of those people that I just could not land an internship. I couldn't land interviews. I just couldn't get anything, right? Like it was super frustrating. And I eventually did end up landing a job as a actuarial analyst, working at a warranty pricing company, getting paid far less than what my peers who graduated with me made. But I worked at that job for like a year and a half before I realized that this stuff isn't really for me. Like I'm not really interested in taking exams for the next X number of years. And there's some other things in personal life that led to me, relocating into Canada. And at that point, I went into a job as a biostatistician. Because coming from the US to Canada, there's certain jobs that NAFTA allows you to easily move across the border for. And one of them was as a biostatistician. So I worked at a pharmaceutical company for a few years as a just doing, designing experiments, writing statistical analysis reports, doing ad hoc kind of statistics, really academic type of statistics. That was boring. I did not like that. But all the while, right? Like what I was truly interested in through grad school, even as an actuary, even in the 5 years I spent as a biostatistician, was predictive analytics, predictive modeling. This is like what I was really, really fascinated by. And once I had enough of that job as a biostatistician, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't put myself through this discomfort and agitation that I'm feeling. It's time to make a change. That's when I started looking at predictive modeling, predictive analytics type of jobs, data mining type of jobs. And then I realized that, oh man, it's been rebranded as data science. I must not have been paying attention. And that's kind of how that fire reignited in me. And this was around 2017 where I really started to like make that shift and start upskilling and start learning. And it was like a year and a half of just struggle trying to land a job. Okay. But eventually in 2019, like January 8th, 2019, I had like 3 offers in front of me, all for data science type of roles, and ended up taking one. A lot of that success though to my mentor, my good friend Kyle McHugh, and the Data Science Dream Job platform that was tremendous and instrumental in my growth and development, and really helped me fast track, because within 6 months of joining that program, I landed a job with multiple offers and just learned so much and became such a better person. But yeah.
And is that why you decided to maybe give back and be a mentor yourself?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask. What were the triggers? When did you decide to become an influencer? I'm sure that was not the purpose in the first place.
It definitely wasn't a decision. So like while I was in Data Science Dream Job as a student, so I bought the program myself. Like at that time it was $3,000, $3,000 US.
Which is a lot for a student.
Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, like that's a lot of money. Oh, sorry, dude. Can I cuss? And I was like, dude, that's a lot of money. But I made the investment and went through the program, and I was just really helpful around the community. We have a very active Slack community. Anytime people had questions, I would help them out. Anytime anybody needed a mock interview, I'd help them out. And I guess Kyle had noticed that I was just really helpful and active around the community. And he's like, hey, let's bring you on as a mentor. You've been really helpful, instrumental. You've been through the process. Now you can help other people. And then from there, he, after a few months, he brought me up to head mentor. And yeah, principal mentor after that. And yeah, just been like for the last I think I've been a mentor for like official mentor at Data Science Dream Job since February of 2019, which has been crazy. And during that time, like you guys know that I host these open office hours that I've just recently started doing every Friday, right? I do that Monday through Thursday at Data Science Dream Job. Like I do that like every day, just private sessions like that with small groups of people transitioning to data science.
That's so nice.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know that I ever decided that, hey, I am going to be a mentor and I'm going to help people. It just happened, man. I think it's just something that is in me to want to give back, to want to contribute. I mean, thinking back at it now, like back in 6th grade, right? My teacher had us do this assignment where we had to create like a nickname for ourselves, but it had to be like the first letter of your name had to describe you as a person. So mine was Helpful Harpreet. That's a nickname I gave myself. And yeah, and I guess that's just been me since then.
Oh.
Nice. And Anna Maria was mentioning that, what an empowering story. This proves why you're so passionate about data science, and definitely have to agree with that. And we have a lot of people here saying that they are excited about statistics as well, and who really enjoyed the story as well. And Vaishnavi, I felt that, Harpreet, and yeah, we all did.
Yeah. Yes. Statistics is awesome. I love statistics, but man, probability theory, that's like my true love. Like probability is definitely my favorite part of all of data science. Doesn't mean that I'm necessarily like a genius at it or good at it, but I absolutely love it. That is like my true love in data science.
And Harpreet, as you're mentoring all these people, and as you've mentored, 2,500 people plus so far, and growing exponentially from what I'm seeing, are there any common themes that come out?
This was my question.
Sorry about that.
You guys finish each
We
other's
think alike.
sentences. You guys finish each other's sentences. That's so sweet.
Yeah, so the question was, what are maybe the three most popular questions that you receive, or the three most popular challenges that young data scientists encounter?
Oh man, that's a good question. Three most. So can I
Doesn't need to
say
be
can I say
three.
can I say myths or like misconceptions that people
Yes.
have? How about
Yes,
that? How about we
absolutely.
frame it as that? I say the big misconception that people have is they think that the only thing that matters is the technical skills. Like this is the only thing that it takes. Like you must have technical skills, else you cannot call yourself a data scientist. I don't necessarily believe that or buy into that. I don't think you need to know everything right now at this moment in order for you to go and start applying for jobs as a data scientist. There is a baseline level of knowledge, of skill that you need to have, and realize that everybody in your peer group who's gunning for the same jobs as you will have that baseline. So have that baseline. And we could talk about that later if you want. Some of the key things you need to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we should, I think.
And then there's the other thing I would say is a big misconception is people think that they need to have a ton of actual work experience, right? People see 3 to 5 years experience and they translate that in their head like, oh, work experience. Like 3 to 5 years experience can be 3 to 5 years experience doing your own projects or whatever, right? And plus that number is typically inflated to keep people like you who are doubtful from applying so that the person does not have to go through a million different resumes, right? So just ignore that, right? Know that number is kind of inflated. So you don't need to have 3 to 5 years. 1 to 2 years is fine. It doesn't even need to be actual work experience at a company. It could be through, self-constructed projects, self-learning projects that are well done, right? You can't just like have a sloppy project up there with just one Jupyter notebook on your GitHub that's like 197 cells long with just basic stuff, right? You have to make it well constructed and there has to be a flow to it. There has to be presentation involved, right? So those two. And the third, I think, is people think they need to have like a graduate degree to get into data science. I don't think that's necessarily true. Like I'm the unfortunate holder of a master's degree. I don't think I needed that. I've learned far more outside of school than I did in school. If anything, during school, I just proved to myself that I'm stubborn because I won't give up. So that's probably the big
Those
thing.
are great recommendations. Bless you.
Thank you.
And Harpreet, out of these things, do you find people are also asking about the experience in a particular field? So if they want to apply in the pharmaceutical industry, do they feel like they have to have that experience within the field?
Yeah. So it definitely a little bit different, right? If you're going to a pharmaceutical company and you're trying to be a biostatistician, then you're going to need a bit more advanced education, for sure. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. Like, if you're going into a field or a type of role where people's lives are on the line based on the decision that you make, then it's probably a good point for that company to require you to have some type of advanced degree. And you should expect yourself to have that because, I wouldn't put my lives in the hands of somebody who doesn't have the necessary training to justify any decision. But for the most part, e-commerce, retail, manufacturing, right? All these other industries, you don't necessarily need to have graduate studies for that, right? Because nobody's life is really on the line there. Yeah, I might eat my words later and I might change my opinions later, but that's good. I always change my opinions in light of new evidence. So let's leave it at that.
Great. Not a problem with that. We have a couple of questions here that are coming in. One from Manju, and he's mentioning, what is the one advice you got related to all things data that really stands out and probably you think it works for others as well?
The one advice related to all things data, man, I just come up with a good question. I'd say just make sure you're formulating a right question and a strong question and a sound question before you do anything else after that, because without a question, you have nothing else. So clearly define the question that you want to try to make progress against, not necessarily solve, because not all questions are solvable, but you can make progress against the question. So clearly define that and make sure you know exactly what it is that you're hoping to get through the process of answering that question.
That's great advice, and you know what? I think this works in other areas as well, within data, not just data science. I
Yeah,
think asking
absolutely.
the right question, you know how to then formulate the answer and how to get there. So, and Anna Maria here is mentioning, how are you able to differentiate yourself from other candidates? What is your superpower, Harpreet?
Uh, so, man, how am I able to differentiate myself from other candidates? I would hope it's, just because I'm super cool. I don't know. Maybe that's the coolness factor. Does
We
that count?
agree.
No.
Yes. Yes, we
But
agree.
I think maybe my ability to communicate is probably what separates me from other candidates, is that I could just clearly communicate and get right to the point, not really beat around the bush, but, just get right to what it is that I'm meaning to say. Ability to think clearly and ability to say, I don't know. And I've
Mhm.
done that several times during interviews. And,
Mm.
people ask me a question. I'm like, look, I don't know the answer to that particular question, but here's another related thing that I know that's kind of tangential to what we're talking about here. And using what I know from there, here's how I would approach this particular problem you're throwing in front of me. But if you want to know like my superpower in terms of just like actual like technical skills, probably statistics, because I study that a lot. So in that sense, for your technical ability is probably statistics. Even then, I'm probably not the greatest statistician out there, but
Mhm.
it's my superpower.
Yeah,
That
but
and learning and reading.
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to add. So you said the ability to communicate and to relate to people, and then yeah, for sure the willingness to learn and to grow.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious, Harpreet, during the data science interviews, do you, I know the whole interview is really a test about communication as well, but are there specific questions that are trying to address and assess that skill? Are they asking something like, give me an analogy that describes this, or explain this to me like I'm 5 years old, and things like that? Are there any types of questions of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, the most basic one I can think of is, hey, you've got this awesome project on your resume. Tell me about that project, right? Why did you pick this project? Why did you pick this problem statement? And walk me through how you got from point A, which is the question, how did you find the data? What did you transform the data into? And then so on and so forth until you made a decision. So I think that type of question clearly tests your ability to communicate while simultaneously testing whether or not you actually did the project. Uh, so
This
that
is a
that
nice question that
yeah,
one can really prepare for,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's something that you
exactly.
can do.
If you're putting anything on your resume, just make sure it's actually true. Make sure you can actually talk about it. If you have something on your resume, like I've interviewed dozens of candidates, right? And I've had people put, they use a support vector machine to do a classification, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, tell me some of the assumptions of support vector machines. So, what does it do? How does this work? What's the kernel trick? And they're just like, oh, um, and they pause. They can't answer it. It's like, okay, well, if you're putting something on your resume, just make sure that you can talk about that thing left, right,
Right.
center, upside down from every possible angle, because you're expected to, right? So your resume is
Mhm.
everything on that thing you should be able to talk at great length about.
Absolutely. I think we've learned that from the movies, that the same thing applies in acting as well.
Oh, really? Ah,
You got to have, your acting resume, like, to be truthful to your capabilities and not say that you can do sword fighting if you don't know sword fighting. So Ravid is asking if, who are the three top data scientists that you follow.
uh, man, top three data scientists. Well, Vin Vashista, number one, hands down. Vin is freaking phenomenal. Daliana Liu is amazing as well. I love her content. And number three is Revit Jane.
And I see Ravid here. He really likes your shirt.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it.
That's the coolness factor.
Yeah. And I love the comment here, and I really agree. Oh, sorry. No, this one. That yeah, I agree. Your cool is super special.
Thank you.
And as Robert is mentioning, Harpreet is a Renaissance man. I see him everywhere. And you'll
Yeah,
see him right after this as well as he goes on another show.
that's right. Yeah, I'll be live on the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast immediately after this, so you can catch more of me.
There you go.
The coolness.
Yeah.
Maybe it rubs off.
So back to Manju's question here. How about evaluating the ability to go from intuition to insights in solving problems in the interviews?
How to go about evaluating the ability to go from intuition to insights in problem solving. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I'm
And
not
maybe
really.
you haven't
Yeah, I'm not
haven't
sure.
come up
Yeah,
on this in interviews, but yeah, I guess
yeah,
what in projects, in data science projects, do you start with an intuition thinking that I kind of think this is where it's going to go, and then you look into the data to validate that intuition?
yeah. So, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question here. So let me know if I'm misunderstanding this here. But the ability to go from intuition to insights. So kind of playing off what George is saying. So the ability to say, okay, well, here's something I think might be going on, or here's a problem I think might be solvable. Here's the question I have. Now let me go explore that. I think the ability to do that, like, hopefully you have an analysis plan clearly stated out that these are the things I'm gonna look at. This is what I'm gonna do. You're clearly outlining ahead of time. You're calling your shots ahead of time. What it is that you plan on doing to make progress against that, and I think when it comes to evaluating that in an interview, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, man. My apologies. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not sure if I
think
understand the
my
question.
understanding of Manju's question is okay, in an interview, what types of questions do you ask in order to evaluate the candidate's ability to, move from
Yeah,
intuition to insights? And I think you answered that question.
yeah. Just tell me how you would tell me if I gave you a data set. Talk to me about what are the first few things you would look for, right? And once you look at those things, how do you use that to inform what decision to make next, right?
Hmm.
And then from that, walk me through each step of the way. How do you go from data to decisions every step in that process? And if what they are saying kind of vibes with how I would do it or how other data scientists would do it, define the problem, discover the discoveries from the data, right? Discovery, EDA, stuff like that. Develop a solution and then, create deployment. How would you deploy it, right? What would that look like once you deploy it in the real world? I guess that would be the steps I would look for: is this define, discover, develop, deploy.
Beautiful. And maintain afterwards, most
Yes, and
likely.
maintenance. Yeah, absolutely.
No, because it doesn't start with a D.
I have to.
We gotta think of a synonym for maintenance with
Yes,
a D.
yes, we have
D
to.
maintenance.
Yeah, good.
So, as a follow up, Anna Maria is wondering how you're dealing with biased data.
I mean, that's a very vague question. What do you mean by biased data? Biased in what way?
Anna
Right?
Maria, we're
Yeah,
looking for your follow up here. I can
yeah,
make some assumptions, but
yeah,
I'll be biased on that.
yeah.
Yeah, before Ana Maria gets back to us, what do you love about mentoring, Harpreet?
Just helping people through the process, man. Seeing the growth in people from, most of the people that enter data science dream job, most people trying to break into data science, they're overwhelmed, they're confused, they don't know what steps to take, and then just seeing the progression from, okay, here you are, this mentee who just does not know how to pave your own way forward, and then just being there helping them pave their own lane. I think that's probably the most rewarding factor for me is
Okay.
watching people pave their own way.
Yeah. And knowing that you are at least a little part of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, they do all the work. I'm just there as a sounding board and talking, but yeah, they're ultimately doing all the work themselves.
Can you share a few success stories, one or two success stories from your mentees? Something that comes to mind.
Oh man, yeah, there's so many good ones. One of my mentees, Chavi, she's awesome. I remember her coming. She'd moved just straight from from India to Canada. Well, she was in the US for a stop, and she had like these gaps in her resume and just didn't know how to overcome that hurdle, how to frame those gaps. Um, and, she had such an unsuccessful process in the data science job search for quite a long time. And then started working with her and getting things, dialing in her process and just seeing the trajectory she's taken since then. So she went from just having zero data science experience fresh out of grad school in India to landing a job as a data scientist and like leveling up within like 7-8 months. She's like moved up from data scientist 1 to data scientist 2, and she's getting
Wow.
accolades from like, the director of data science at her company. So she's had a tremendous amount of success. Yeah. So that's been really good to see.
Wow.
Wonderful.
That's always uplifting.
Yeah, people
And-
become hopeful when they hear these types of stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And Manju here is saying that being a mentor completely resonates with me as well.
Mhm.
And we know Manju's a great mentor too.
Yeah.
So Anna Maria got back to us regarding the bias data, and she was referring to the collection process in relation to bias data. So maybe when you're collecting this data, if you're, not purchasing it, but you're acquiring it through maybe a survey or other methods, how do you ensure you're not being biased, I guess, in your collection of the data?
Yeah, so I can just fall back on some experience that, in clinical trials that I had, and hopefully that this is helping you answer that question, because I'm not sure that I've actually been involved in the data collection process. But in clinical trials, when we're working with the clinical scientist, right, the scientist in charge of the protocol, they typically have an endpoint that they want to achieve, right? And in order for them to validate that the drug is helping that endpoint, we need to define what data points we want to collect, because we can't collect everything, right? We can't take their blood and check for everything in the patient's blood, right? There's certain markers that we need to check for. So just making sure that what it is that you're collecting actually ties back to the endpoint, right, that you're trying to achieve. I mean, beyond that, I don't have too much experience with collection process of data. Like I said, as a data scientist, as a statistician, I'm primarily the end consumer of data. That's slowly shifting to now in the data management, data governance process. But I mean, that's all I can really say to that point.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Eric Sims is here, and he was just thinking the same thing. But I think
Alright.
that's really related to what Scott was mentioning, which is that he's biased about your authorship.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Good choice there. What are the next steps for the artist of data science?
So, I mean, I just hope to continue to get really cool guests on the show. Like, I love, like, my favorite part about the interviews that I do, like the happy hours and the office hours are great. I think that's the main reason a lot of people tune in, is because they get their data science advice. They get to hear from other, influencers in the field. But to me, man, like, my pride and joy are those interviews, because the effort and work that goes into crafting that interview, crafting that conversation, it's to me, it's interesting. It's like an art form. I just hope to continue to get more and more authors on the show that I love and respect. I've been fortunate enough to get a few authors that I really look up to on the show, like Robert Greene, James Altucher, Barbara Oakley, to name a few, Jordan Ellenberg, and just hope to continue to get more and more authors of books that I really enjoy, more and more people with different perspectives. I love being challenged on the podcast. I love exploring new areas. Like, I'll have a lot of philosophers on, just because, like, I feel like talking about philosophy. I feel like, diving into it. Like, I use the interviews as a opportunity for me to stretch my learning, stretch my thinking, and just delve into areas that I'm not familiar with and learn more about them from people who know about it, right? Sometimes I'll talk to people because I'm going through a certain problem myself, right? Like, I'm going through burnout issues, or I'm going through whatever, and I know that somebody wrote a book that's talking about that. Oh, let me talk to them about that, because I'm going through this shit myself. So let me see if you can help me clarify some stuff. So, I mean, I just hope to continue to get more and more interesting people covering a wide variety of topics. in whatever way I can, tie it back to data science. But ultimately, man, like, you know, the, I hope it doesn't come off wrong when I say this, but the podcast is for me, man. Like I do that entirely for me. Like I love the act of creating it. It is, I'm speaking words into existence with people that did not exist. Like there was nobody else is going to have this conversation of words like we're having right now. This energy, this is
Right.
completely unique. It's never going to be recreated, right?
Right.
Unless you're listening to a replay. But you're speaking something into existence that did not exist before, and to me, that's just really cool and fascinating. Sorry, I'm getting like really philosophical there, but
Oh, we like philosophy very much.
And as Eric was mentioning, your interviews are definitely more thought provoking than most.
oh, thank you,
And
man. Appreciate that.
our LinkedIn users here agrees. I have had so much growth from listening to his show, and I agree as well. Of course, you're a great podcaster and you're a great interviewer, and you have this chill factor about you, and it's just making the whole experience so much more enjoyable.
Hmm.
And I noticed that you seem to enjoy the learning process quite a bit and doing your research before the
Mhm.
show and coming up with amazing questions for your guests.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts is the research. I get a lot of people that hit me up asking to help on the podcast. Like, hey, can I help you with the guest research? Can I help you write the intro? I'm like, no, that's like what makes my podcast. My podcast is those factors is what differentiates it. If you want to help, you can help with like annotating my transcripts, cleaning my transcripts, or whatever. But the actual like research process for the interview, like that's something I will never uh, offload to anyone else. Because I mean, I'll go through their books, I'll go through their blog posts, I'll spend like the week before the interview listening to their other podcast episodes. Like I immerse myself in that person's world and that person's life for days leading up to the interview. It's
Amazing.
probably, I mean, no joke, it's literally like 25 hours, 12 to 25 hours spent preparing myself for each interview, just really trying to understand uh, that person's contribution to whatever it is that they're doing, and and pulling out questions that I try to look for questions that haven't been asked, because I'll listen to all the different questions they've been asked on other podcasts, and I'm like, if people want to know this, they can probably go somewhere else and listen to that. Let me think of a different question for you from a different part of your work. But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it definitely pays out. You have a lot of fans, a lot of followers, and people learn a lot from you, which is a
And
great, let's say, byproduct
yeah,
after your
yeah.
enjoyment with this.
Yeah, that's definitely very humbling. And I mean, that's not even like the thing that I'm focused on, right? Like that, which is interesting, right? Like, I mean, I don't necessarily care about the numbers, the downloads, the reach. I hope that that's just the byproduct, right? I hope that by me putting in the work and putting in the effort, that stuff will just happen. It's just a matter of people hearing about it, learning about it, coming in contact with it. But I just enjoy the process of doing everything for the
Nice.
podcast.
Which I think you've also answered Ravid's questions. What do you love about podcasting?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of things about it. And you've just released one episode today. Which one was that?
Oh yeah, I released one with Jamie Woodhouse, and he's kind of developed this philosophy called Sentientism, which is really interesting. It's about extending compassion to all sentient beings, not just human sentience. So it was really fascinating. I got a chance to learn about a philosophy I never heard of, and he's really articulate, and I really loved hearing him talk. So yeah, definitely check that one out. So I mean, there's like a huge time delay between my episodes, so like I haven't recorded a podcast interview since May 27th, but I have enough interviews recorded to last me until February of 2022.
Wow.
So I've got quite a bit. And I try to sprinkle in data scientist here and there. So next week's episode is with the one and only Kenji. And
Yes.
yeah,
Lovely.
and then the week after that is with
Kenji's great.
Jordan Ellenberg.
You should wear the same shirt because I think he's in Hawaii, isn't he?
Yeah,
Kenji?
yeah. He's
He'll
traveling right now. I think he's probably
yeah.
think he's back home in Chicago. But when we interviewed, he was in Hawaii. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Where can people find your podcast?
Everywhere, man. Everywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, you can find them. Yep, the
You
Artist
can
of Data
check out
Science.
this link here at theartistofdatascience.fireside.fm.
Yeah. that's the best place to go. My website is kind of non-existent at the moment because that's just not something I've prioritized. But hopefully one day I will have a proper website for the podcast itself. Scott Taylor was asking when his second interview is going to be released. Yeah, much later in the year. I interviewed Scott. It might have been like 2 months ago, but yeah, there's huge time delay between, because I go on these crazy recording sprints, right? Like
Mm.
for the last 6 months, I've been doing like 3 to 4 interviews a week, and it's just so time consuming. Like reading the books, listening to the podcast, and it was good to get a break for a while because there's so many great ideas that I expose myself to that just fills my head up, and it's good to give my mind some space to digest and connect dots between things. So like haven't really been reading too much, even though like I'm looking at my desk, there's a pile of books, but it's good to take a break from podcasting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But one of our audience members here wants you to know that your intros are legendary. How much you learn about each guest prior to a question being asked. So you're
Thanks.
doing a great job, and your passion is definitely contagious.
All right on, man. I'm glad.
Yep. And we have another question here from Andrew. I believe motivation gets you started, but habit keeps you going. What keeps you going?
Yeah, motivation definitely. Like you need to have that internal drive to want to get somewhere, right? You have to have that within you, and habits are good. Habits are good. I think what keeps me going is just enjoying what I'm doing, enjoying the process, right? I try on different routines and I try on different things and try to find what works for me. So I guess what keeps me going is just this continual journey of trying to figure out what works best for me, right? Because I never want to get to a place where I'm like, this is it, right? I never want to ever feel like this is all there is. So that's what kind of keeps me going, is just what else can I learn about? What else can I try to figure out? What other dots can I try to connect? Like I have like books here sitting in my library. There's like hundreds of books all around me. I've probably read maybe 60% of them. The rest are there just to remind me that I don't know that much, right? So if I ever get to a point, it's like, oh wait, no, there's still more left for you to figure out. But yeah, I guess what keeps me going, man, is just that desire to just want to learn as much as I possibly can, connect as many dots as I can.
That's beautiful. And we appreciate your learning because you're always giving back from what you've learned. So
yeah,
you're giving back a lot to the data science community. And remind us on the open office hours. You have one on Friday at I think it's 2 p.m. for me. It's I think 4 p.m. for you, Central Time. And you have another one on Sunday
mornings at 11 a.m. Yeah,
Central
so
Time.
11 a.m. Central Time. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I give what I can when I can, with an open heart and a smile on my face, and it just so happens that those 2 times are the times that I'm most free to do that. So hopefully, I know it's kind of inconvenient for people who are on the other side of the planet, but that's why I did that thing at Sundays at 11 a.m. because people in Europe and APAC can join in, and it's still like early evening time for them.
Yeah,
I think.
And we know you also provide the recording, so anybody that has missed it can definitely benefit from listening, watching the conversations as they unfold.
Yeah, they're all available on the podcast as well. And I recently got approved for LinkedIn Live, so they're all going to be on LinkedIn Live.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I did the first one last week, so all of them will be right here on LinkedIn Live as well.
That's so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping things up, because we want to give Harpreet a little break between the shows too.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm happy to take as many questions as necessary.
But we wanted to mention to definitely check out the artist of data science.fireside.fm, and you can listen to it through your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, and hey, if you like it, if you think it's a good podcast, then go ahead and drop a 5-star review for me on Apple. I'd appreciate that.
Definitely. Is there anything else you would like to share now that we're coming to a close? Any, I don't know, advice or any thoughts?
Yeah, man, you've got one life on this planet. Why not try to do something big?
Correct.
Yep.
Beautiful.
loving it.
Yeah, exactly. You have a wonderful energy about you, Harpreet, and it's very easy to learn from you, I find, and it's very pleasant to listen to you as well,
Well,
which
thank
is
you.
a
I
great
appreciate that.
combination.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's crazy to me that people are learning from me. I feel like I don't know anything. Like I don't know much about anything at all, honestly. But you know, if you guys are feeling you're learning, I'm happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what, Harpreet, at least from my perspective, I feel that, being in your presence, it's kind of like being next to the ocean. You're enjoying your time, and it sort of brings your heartbeat rate down a little bit.
Yeah. It's
Right on,
Calms
man.
you
calming
down.
presence.
Right
Yes.
on. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. So thank you very much for everything that you do,
Awesome.
Harpreet. And I think you are, I mean, to me, just listening to you, I just think, ask myself the question, how can I contribute more? So it's not only teaching people, but teaching people that giving to others is actually something very rewarding, and a high tide raises all boats.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I mean, somebody was asking about what drives me to create those curated PDFs about different parts of data science process, and it helps me learn more, helps me clarify my thoughts, and if I learn more and clarify my thoughts during that process, and might as well just share it with other people, and also just to
Right.
kind of see what it is that people actually like, testing the waters to see what people like. I might create more of those curated PDFs. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Time permitting, but
Please do. Please
they're fun
do.
to create. They're a lot of fun to create.
Actually, George comes to me very often and says, "Look, what
Yeah,
Harpreet
look,
does.
I
I
gotta
gotta do
learn
that
from
too."
that too. Yes.
Canva makes it easy, man. Canva makes it easy for anyone to design anything.
Correct. Yeah, that's
All
true.
right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today, and definitely follow Harpreet on LinkedIn as well, as he has a lot of great content to follow, and not just the PDFs, but all around. It's all motivational, it's all inspirational, it's all practical stuff. So please follow him on LinkedIn.
And thank you
Right
very
on.
much, Harpreet,
Uh,
for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for tuning in and giving me your time, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Happy
everyone.
Friday.